So we're actually moving on to track B now, which is the behavioral modification apps. And our first group will be group 9.
Hi everyone, we're Team 9. We're students from UCI ICA School. My name is Meng Yi, and this is Ting Wei, this is Anshit, this is Will, and this is another David.
So, as many of us know, the opioid epidemic is a systemic problem that many of us have heard about, and it is a growing issue in the US. But a main issue that needs to be addressed is this concept of isolation with the opioid users. The systemic problem is that most opioid users, they don't feel comfortable in their discussion of their use of opioids because it's negatively stigmatized by society. And if you notice this user right here, by the time she's probably been found through overdose, it's already too late. Her family doesn't know that she's been using opioids, and nobody has known that she's in the process of this problem. And in an article published by the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine, these researchers found that a solid opioid prevention plan is by treating the individual patient as the tipping point, but having a strong foundation underneath them through the government, key stakeholders such as the doctors and prescribers, and then their family as well. So our behavioral app is trying to address this type of solution.
And in order to address this question, rather than using direct intervention, we believe building a supported community is a fundamental step of reforming how we treat the opioid. And we decided to build a habit-forming product by connecting patients, family, and the specialists to a supported community. The patient will be able to receive help as well as contribute to the community. And our app can also help the patients track their progress, and they can witness their own milestone of how they have been improving. So this is our homepage. So we try to keep the homepage as simple as possible, and we don't want to make any implication of this as specifically for the opioid use. We want to promote it as a lifestyle app. So on the homepage, we just have a very simple card that encourage users to take action and check out our features.
This is one of our key features, which is named Shared Calendar. What Shared Calendar do is to allow patients to make plans ahead with their friends and families. And it also allows local health programs to put up events on the calendar. This is to make our local health program more accessible to our patient. So this feature is aiming to remind our patient that they're not isolated alone with their problems. It motivates patients to manage their addiction by visualizing things that they can look forward to in their life, and it distracts patients from the addiction by showing them that you are occupied and cared by the real world.
So we also have the forum feature, which connects users with other people with close experiences. And also the specialists, they can also be in this forum to provide tips and tricks on how to get rid of opioid addiction. And the key feature for this forum is actually for people with similar experience to share their stories so that people get connected with their experience, and also they can also see how far are they into the addiction, and then also people with similar experience can also comment on other posts to help that oh, I have got through opioid addiction, and then here are the steps in order to get rid of opioid addiction, and we think that it's a helpful platform for people with similar experiences and people with specialists with expert knowledge to post stuff on.
And essentially, we only want the user to keep track of the good events, the good memories, rather than like keep tracking of anything related to opioid. We want to promote the lifestyle that encourage the user to reconnect with the community again. So we designed the progress bar where the user can visualize the milestones and actually see how much changes they have made within the past months or like past years, and they'll be able to witness how much they have been improving.
Great, thanks. We're going to have to take some.
So a lot of the patients have mood disorders, may have depression and personality disorders. What would motivate them to use this? There need to be a lot of hand-holding or some types of incentives built in to get the patient out of a normal routine in their experiences.
So initially, we actually tried to test out a new interaction called a badge system, is that the user will be able to track their progress using the badge. So you can see like the visual icons where each icons are tied to a specific memories and events. And in order to earn those badges, they will have to either like be participating in the event, or they will have to be like doing some certain like progress. But okay.
Another thing that we were looking at too is that in a lot of the apps on the market today, you really have a disconnect between the family and the patient, or the patient and the doctor. So one way to do that is that you could have the family member or the doctor be involved in the account setup and account monitoring to allow for that connection of information between the patient and the family and the doctor. Obviously, there will be the issue of consent of the data, but working around that with the family connection is an avenue to go and to look into that.
Any question?
And a big part of this is on continuing to work forward in the future. How is your team structured, or how would you be able to continue working on this in the future?
So we will so since most of us are still undergraduate students, even though we might not be able to make significant progress, but we will have a lot of time to dedicate it to it. And we have a team, we have a computer science major, we have software engineering major, and I am an informatics major. So we basically got all of the fields covered, and we are willing to pick up any skill set that is required to complete the product.
You said you're all undergraduates?
I am going to be graduated on December, actually.
I'm a recent grad.
Yeah, and most importantly, we really want to help in this field. We really want to save lives, because we believe that at some point, like our patient they just lost control in their life, and at some point, every one of us will get lost. So we really want to help the people who are feeling lost. They're just not lost, they're just undiscovered. And we want to help them by letting them be discovered by their mates and by their families, and encourage them to discover the world.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie and I'm going to be introducing the rest of the teams. Next up we have Team 16.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ed. This is Vincent. We are part of Team OctoCare. We are a diverse group of engineers and data science people who have developed a lot of projects in the past, mobile app development work, wearable technology, design, back-end services, web development, and IT support services. So we have a group that has worked together on projects in the past that have been quite successful. So now, despite people's best intentions, staying on the right path and staying clean is hard. And OctoCare, the purpose of it is to watch for behavioral and environmental cues in a patient's life, to alert and to escalate to a care circle so that they can then take and provide action on a timely basis. So the combination of wearable tech, mobile application, and web services allows us to feed information into machine learning algorithms that can identify the potential fall-off situations, as well as offer rewards for positive activity. We can detect motion, heart rate, location, if it's a danger zone where they shouldn't be, because it's a trigger point, as well as watch their sharing and engagement that they can do within the app and the service itself. So let me show you how this works. So here we are in a web portal, and what might happen is that the system has already detected a trigger, a behavioral condition in which one of the care people has been alerted. So they would get a text message or an email, and then they could go into the portal and say, okay, I want to learn more about what's going on. In this case, for example, I might be someone who actually sponsors a number of people and want to help with them, so I might see several people on my portal. Here we have Caden, who is actually showing up as yellow, somebody who may be a little bit in danger. So let me go look a little bit more about details about what the incident was that happened with them. Some people in their care circle have already checked in. They've said, okay, this behavior's been acceptable, but they wanted to make sure they looked in on it. I can take a look and see more details, and I can actually send them an affirmation. All right, you're doing okay. Let's get back on track, or whatever is appropriate message. I can request a video chat with them. This will allow me to go direct interaction with them. You'll see a little bit about that later. Or I might determine that in this case, this is something that needs to be escalated. More people need to know about this in the care circle. I really want to make sure that I can flag this as something that needs to be taken care of. So now all stakeholders in their care circle will be alerted. This is on the web side of things. On the mobile, we have a combination of a Fitbit app, which unfortunately you cannot see, but believe me, it's a pretty little app that we can run here on the Fitbit that we wrote that allows us to track information such as, well, here they are, running information. And this information feeds to our backend as part of our behavioral analysis and what they're doing. The app itself allows the user to, and it's got a sensitive to you that's a little light. So I'm going into the app, and as a user, I can have positive reinforcement through badging. You've heard this earlier, but something that we identified as well as goals that people might set. How long have they been in the good side? The streaks that they might do, other rewards that we might give them. I've also connected them to community forums where they can then communicate with people in a similar situation in a safe and secure environment. And then when they want to communicate with their circles, and this is another behavioral characteristic that they are encouraged to do to earn points, to be able to talk with their group and be able to send them messages and let them stay engaged. I might log that I've done some activities, or I might want to take a picture and say, yep, I'm in a safe environment. Let me show you everything is good with me. Now, we've built triggers into the app itself so that I have a very simple one that I can trigger just by kind of waving right now. And this should, there we go, generate an alert. Now, the user wouldn't see this. This is to show you that the care circle has now received this alert and sent it off so they can take action. And I'm getting more. So I should get in a moment is a call from my friend. There we are. You can't hear it, but it's actually ringing. And Vincent, I am so glad you contacted me. I've had a rough day. I've had no sleep. I have this sensation that I'm being judged, and I'm just so glad to see a friendly face. Thank you for checking in.
Of course, I'm always happy to be here for you.
Okay, so this is OctoCare. It allows people to take small steps in an easy, engageable environment that doesn't overload the caregivers and the providers or the user themselves. It provides rewarding and a captivating environment whereby people can get that feedback in an immediate way, and it ingrains positive behavior reinforcement. So that is OctoCare. Thank you.
How difficult do you think it will be to bring your circle of care individuals up to speed on how to use the technology? So in terms of implementing this, do you see that to be fairly easy, or how do you go about it?
Yeah, certainly people today are getting more and more comfortable with social and web-based technologies, and that is, part of the design challenge to get people to make an environment that's easy to use. We believe that from their perspective, using color coding, nice, easy to read graphics and stuff, this was a few hours of design work, but yeah, we think that's something that's very achievable.
I can't afford an iWatch. What do I do? Is there an organization that, how do I do this? This is great. How do I?
This is something that insurance companies are getting involved in, healthcare companies are getting involved in. I know full companies that are getting Fitbits for everybody employees because they know the health benefits for that. So, as far as a benefit to the whole society as a whole, I see this as a big win for everyone.
Last question.
Sure.
I'm a SAMHSA agency. I funded somebody in this community, and I noticed that they're in the area. How do they get to some intervention that SAMHSA funded for help, additional help?
Oh, so if I needed to be able to go beyond what I can get from here, I'm not personally as familiar with that side of things, but certainly something we can talk about after the event. Give me some more insight. Like this.
So what kind of a personal information do you collect?
So right now we've collected data that we can get on the Fitbits. So we've got heart rate, we've got activity monitoring, so your steps, your activity, staying general fit, your location service, so we know if you're entering a zone that may be a trigger area that you shouldn't be in, or if you're staying in positive areas with friends and family that we know about those zones. What else do we have? A couple of those like that. Oh, then of course the engagement part. We really want to make sure that we're watching you do this engagement so we can see you doing it and add that as a benefit to you.
How can you convince a user to share that information with you?
Well, it's anonymized in some sense in that this doesn't go beyond their circle. We don't need to see it. It's all part of the algorithm that it would be personalized just for them. So it's not like that information is going beyond the people that they feel comfortable sharing it with.
How do they find the support or what if I don't know anyone? What if I'm not comfortable sharing with anyone?
Well, I certainly think that a doctor or a service would be one tier in your thing. So at least, hopefully, you have one person who you can connect with, who is somebody who you can, in a medical sense, you feel comfortable going to. Beyond that, there are a lot of support groups out there. And so whether it's somebody you know personally or it's somebody who maybe is a sponsor for others who want to try to make sure that they can take care of people who have gone through the same thing they're going through. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed and Vincent. Next up, we have Team 19.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and I'm the CEO and founder of Behavior, and we're creating a platform to predict and prevent addiction, relapses, and overdoses using wearables like an advanced version of a Fitbit and artificial intelligence for timely interventions. Our initial focus is opioids, including prescription pain pills, heroin, and fentanyl. So during this hackathon, the behavior team in Track B built a behavior change application that can be used by people in recovery, their support network, and their clinicians. So most people in recovery end up relapsing over and over again, despite their desperate best efforts. So relapse rates are 90% for heroin users, and historically, the tools used to help people stay sober have been reactive rather than proactive. They provide help after people start using again or after they overdose. But today is a new era of proactive relapse prediction with behavior. Wearables, smartphones, and artificial intelligence all have recently evolved, and we're now able to detect that someone trying to stay sober is in a red alert craving obsession state. This allows us to intervene with the right support at the right time in real time. This is where our app comes in. Meet Amy. Amy recently finished a 28-day stay in an inpatient treatment facility. A few weeks later, her father passed away. Now her sleep's off, she's smoking more cigarettes than usual, skipping her support group meetings and therapy appointments, her heart's racing, she's getting jittery, sweaty, and she can't stop thinking about using again. Based on her physiology and behavior, we tell Amy that her patterns resemble a drug craving obsession state, and we ask her, what does she want to do about it? Amy chooses to have a supportive message and photo and phone call she set up for herself in advance. It's a photo of her daughter, and the message says, I don't want you to screw up your life again. I love you. When we then connect Amy to her 12-step sponsor, and she's able to make it through this relapse mode state without relapsing. The beauty of our technology is that interventions can be completely customized in advance to do whatever people know will help them most in their time of need. We will also detect overdoses to give quicker access to life-saving medications like naloxone. Guardian angel on your wrist. And this is our team. We're looking forward to incorporating the insights from this weekend into our startup, which will be the perfect platform for which we can continue what we've accomplished so far. Now we're going to show you how recovery works.
Quick introductions. Sure. Hi everyone, my name is Cameron Battrini. Primarily a software engineer working on the back end and API calls for the platform.
Hey guys, I'm Alex. I'm a second-year medical student at UCLA, and yeah, good to meet you.
And hi, I'm Brian. I'm a fourth-year informatics major. I just kind of helped out with some of the research on where to put the buttons and stuff.
Just waiting for it to load. Okay, so as you can see, this is the login for our app, and we're logging in as Amy. So a lot of apps in the past, for example, like weight loss apps, you need to have a scale, you need to measure out the chicken breast, what you're gonna eat every day, right? If the scale breaks, if you have a rough day at work, it's gonna all fall apart, right? So we wanna make it as proactive as possible, as seamless as possible. So this is an example of what we have. So for example, the medications you're taking, check here, it's kind of like a motivational tool. And what we wanted to incorporate a lot was community. So each time you get so I got a chat from, let me see, Amy saying she reached her streak. So this is an example of how we wanted to incorporate it, and we wanted to be as patient-centered as possible. So we know sometimes patients aren't comfortable sharing this information. So here we have a little icon here, and if I click it, we no longer have this kind of a behavior that's sharing with our support team, right? So we want to be as patient-centered as possible and as research-driven as possible. So another example of that is this little the vitals here. So for example, not having enough sleep, that's an indication of perhaps a mental disorder, right? So maybe you're depressed, you're sleeping too much, you're sleeping too little, you have insomnia. So here, because the sleep is very low for this particular patient, we're gonna have a little prompt saying, do you wanna call Dr. Grayson to schedule an appointment? And so you can do it very seamlessly in an easy way, and once you click it, I get a call, I'm all these different people at once, but that's kind of the gist of what happens. And so there's obviously other options as well. So here, there's guided meditations, there are different resources, the 12-step program, for example, if they don't have a social network. There's guidance for other resources as well, and ability to reach out to, for example, a therapist. As well as a survey option that the physician can customize depending on what they want to learn about the patient each day and check in on. Here, there's kind of a similar thing. So trigger updates as well as emergency activation. So if something's going wrong, you can activate it. Again, this is something that sends a text with a location. So I just got a text with a link to a Google Maps location, which will bring me to the location of the patient making the activation call. And again, like naloxone kits, you can activate and just kind of see where the nearest naloxone location is, in this case, a CVS, and get directions for that. And then a messaging option for your physician if you want to schedule an appointment. How's it going, Amy? Good, thanks for asking. I've seen you've been having a bit of trouble sleeping. You want to schedule an appointment? Yeah, that works. And so this is just an option for these kind of community-built options that be as easy and accessible as possible, while simultaneously being as patient-centered as possible, and not being too prying into the patient's information and having them have control of their own data. Thank you. Thank you so much.
One question. I don't quite get the fundamental value you are bringing to your users. I missed that part.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What the value does your app bring to your users?
So the users, it's very difficult when you're struggling with addiction, especially opioid use disorder, and adherence and maintenance is very difficult. A lot of people in recovery struggle after rehab and after outpatient, and they're kind of left to their own devices, and the relapse rate is very, very high, and that's an issue for many reasons.
I think research has shown that being able to bring in community is a really good way in order to bridge these gaps and kind of motivate people, and so that's kind of one of the main features that we wanted to have.
And we're using positive behavior change techniques like motivational interviewing and nudging and some gamification.
And this definitely helps out both the actual end user, which would be the patient, but also the physicians. They can actually do more catering to that specific patient, depending on what type of behaviors they're going through on a typical day-to-day, and then they can have more management and basically more touch and reaction to anything that comes up for said patient.
So outside of the physicians, could this be used by mental health, substance abuse, or caseworker?
Absolutely. Yep. The dashboard could be used by anybody. It could be used by a peer support network person, peer mentor, outpatient, caseworker, friend, anybody. And that's another beautiful thing, is that if someone can't afford treatment and they just have their friends and family there, or that's what they prefer for privacy, that's an option for them as well.
Yes, and one thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to provide methods for basically limiting some of the scope and view, because dealing with an addiction is a very difficult thing for a lot of people to actually come forward and even tell close friends and family. So we want to make this as least intrusive as possible. So we have a lot of plans to actually make this basically more, I guess, incognito for folks that aren't aware of these, aren't comfortable with these type of revelations to express their groups.
So is this a free app?
Yeah, so one of the requirements is, well, not requirements, but it would be good to have a wearable as one of the features, but it's not excluded to having a wearable. There are other features as well that make it useful to clinicians. And so right now it's not charged for.
It's also, we have an iOS app that we have that will also be able to provide information via the Health Kit and Care Kit open source SDKs. So it's something that you can actually go in here and then as a patient be able to actually view this on your iPhone. It would be something that we'd be able to actually provide out for free, given that there's not really any overhead in this SDK.
You mentioned you have a startup you're working on, and I think the rest of the team is new as part of this. Which part is for the startup? What's new, and how, in moving forward, how would things come together? Would the team work on the startup? Would this be a separate thing? How would you continue together?
So the entire app was built here and with this amazing team, and that's something new. We hadn't gotten to that point yet. Actually, we're doing clinical research now with people in recovery, doing IRB-approved studies takes time, so we're testing different wearables, and we were looking at different strategies for testing in our research. But yeah.
I'm a medical student, so I'll be like in school for another 8 years, I guess. But I'd be like very much willing and happy to work with Ellie on this project. So.
Everybody on the team has expressed interest in continuing to help, and they're all very passionate about this, just like I am very passionate. It's my life's work. So luckily, a lot of this stuff can be done remotely, and we already have our app built too. So a lot of things that we would add to it would be features and making it a little prettier on the outside.
I'm sorry, just one more question. Can the data be exported? Can I share with some other entity that I may want to have the information?
That's an excellent question, and it's one thing that we've heavily looked into, the Human API. To give you guys more context on what the Human API is, it's essentially one large aggregation of medical and health and wellness data that's actually accessed through OAuth. It's all in a JSON format that can be leveraged for essentially medical purposes. So this not only includes like basically medical information, but also information from various wearables. So, okay, just take my word for it that there's a lot of data sources and we can do a lot of integrations.